For 2 decades, my life was a quiet vigil. Every morning, I'd wake in the small apartment I'd called home since my husband passed, the walls plastered with photographs of a life that felt impossibly distant. Young Clara, beaming in her elementary school play costume, her bright eyes sparkling. Little Thomas, muddy but triumphant after his first soccer game, a gap-toothed grin splitting his face. Pictures of birthdays, Christmases, trips to the old lake house we'd saved for. Every day, I'd make my coffee, the rich, dark aroma filling the tiny kitchen, and sit by the window, the worn velvet of the armchair a familiar comfort. I'd watch the city wake up, the first rays of sun painting the brick buildings across the street in hues of orange and gold. I'd check my phone, a ritual of quiet desperation, 0 missed calls, 0 messages, always the same. The screen's cold glow reflected my own hollow gaze. I kept a folder of photos on my phone, not of them, but of the gifts I'd sent over the years. A cashmere scarf for Clara, its soft folds captured in a pristine image. A vintage Mont Blanc fountain pen for Thomas, its gleaming silver casing reflecting the light. Each package carefully chosen, wrapped with ribbons and bows, and photographed, as if I needed physical proof that I had tried, that I hadn't given up, that I was still their mother. The silence that followed each gift was a cold, familiar companion, confirming their indifference. At 68, I didn't care about impressing anyone, but I still held on to my dignity. My silver hair was neatly styled, my clothes always clean, if a little worn. I'd walk in the park, the crisp autumn air a welcome bite against my cheeks, watching other women my age laugh with their grandchildren. A pang of longing, sharp and sudden, would echo in my chest. Clara had 2 children, a boy and a girl. Thomas had a daughter. I knew this from the fleeting glimpses I'd caught on social media before they blocked me entirely, severing that last, tenuous thread. 3 grandchildren who didn't know my name, who grew up thinking their grandmother simply wasn't around. The thought was a bitter pill to swallow. Then, one Tuesday, an envelope arrived. Thick, ivory cardstock, cool and smooth beneath my fingertips, with elegant gold lettering that shimmered in the afternoon light. An invitation, from Clara, to her 40th birthday party, this Saturday, at her home. My hands trembled as I opened it, the delicate paper rustling softly. After 20 years of silence, a formal invitation, hope, a fragile, forgotten thing, stirred within me, a tiny flicker in the darkness. I searched for a personal note, a handwritten sentiment, anything to suggest warmth, but there was nothing. Just the printed details, stark and unyielding. Impersonal, yes, but it was something. It was more than I'd had in 2 decades. It was a crack in the wall, however small. The next 3 days were a whirlwind of preparation. This wasn't just a party, it was a chance to exist again. I bought a deep sapphire dress, the color of a midnight sky, an elegant but understated choice. It cost me nearly a quarter of my monthly pension, a sum that would normally make me wince, but I didn't care. I also bought a gift, a delicate antique locket, its silver filigree intricate and beautiful, which I had engraved with Clara's initials. Inside, I carefully placed a tiny, faded photo of her as a child, her innocent smile a poignant reminder of a happier time. It cost me every penny of my emergency savings, a sacrifice I made without hesitation. This was a different kind of emergency. This was my chance to remind them I was still here, always had been, waiting. Saturday arrived, and I dressed with meticulous care, each movement deliberate, almost ceremonial. Light makeup, just enough to soften the lines around my eyes, the pearl necklace my own mother had given me, its cool weight against my skin a comforting presence. Low-heeled pumps, sensible and comfortable. I looked in the mirror and saw an older woman. Yes, with wrinkles etched around my eyes and mouth, and silver hair I no longer bothered to dye, letting it gleam with its natural luster. But I also saw a woman who still stood tall, whose shoulders were still straight, who still had dignity. A flicker of strength in my own gaze. I took a taxi. My eyesight wasn't what it used to be, and the thought of navigating unfamiliar streets in the dark filled me with a quiet anxiety. During the ride, the city lights blurring outside the window, I rehearsed my lines. Hello, Clara. Happy birthday, darling. Thomas, it's so good to see you both. Simple phrases that a mother shouldn't need to rehearse, but I did. The taxi dropped me in front of a sprawling estate, a beacon of light and laughter in the exclusive suburbs, its grand facade illuminated by strategically placed uplights. Clara had clearly prospered. Her husband, David Sterling, was a prominent architect, and she, a socialite, her name often appearing in the society pages. I knew this from the internet searches I'd sometimes succumb to, late at night, a morbid curiosity driving my fingers across the keyboard, reading articles about their charity galas, their country club memberships, their perfect life that had no room for me. I took a deep breath, the scent of blooming jasmine heavy in the evening air, and walked to the imposing front door. Before I could ring, it opened, and a young woman in a crisp black uniform, her smile polite but impersonal, greeted me. "Please come in. The party is in the garden." I followed her down a long hallway, my footsteps muffled by thick Persian rugs. The walls were adorned with modern art, abstract splashes of color and form, and furniture that probably cost more than everything I owned, sleek and minimalist. The air was cool, faintly scented with expensive perfume and fresh flowers. The garden, when we finally emerged into it, was breathtaking. At least 70 guests, a sea of elegant dresses and tailored suits, mingled around beautifully arranged tables draped in white linens, adorned with fresh flowers that glowed under the soft string lights. Servers circulated with trays of champagne flutes and delicate appetizers. Live string music, a classical quartet, filled the air with a gentle melody. It was a magazine-perfect affair, expensive and spectacular, every detail meticulously curated. And I, in my sapphire dress and with my antique locket, felt like an imposter. I spotted Clara, radiant in a shimmering gown that caught the light with every movement, her blonde hair styled in elegant waves. She was laughing with a group of women, their voices tinkling like wind chimes, all exuding that glow of money and success. I approached slowly, each step requiring more courage than I thought I possessed, my heart thrumming a nervous rhythm against my ribs. Clara saw me, her eyes meeting mine across the expanse of the garden, and her laughter died, fading into an abrupt silence. For a fleeting second, I saw something in her eyes I couldn't quite decipher. Surprise? Annoyance? A flicker of recognition, quickly masked. Then, a forced smile, a practiced curve of her lips that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Mother," she said, her voice cool, almost surprised. "You came." "Happy birthday, Clara," I managed, my voice a little shaky. "You look beautiful." The words felt inadequate, hollow. "Thank you," she replied, her gaze sweeping over my sapphire dress with a quick, dismissive glance. "It's a lovely surprise." She then introduced me to her friends, a rapid-fire succession of names that blurred into an indistinguishable murmur, each woman offering a polite, practiced smile that felt like a thin veil over their obvious curiosity. I felt like an exhibit, a relic from a past Clara preferred to keep hidden. Then Thomas appeared, tall and impeccably dressed in a dark suit, his dark hair slicked back, his eyes holding the same distant politeness as his sister's. "Mother," he said, a slight nod of his head, a gesture devoid of warmth. "Good to see you." He didn't hug me. Neither of them did. 20 years, and not even a perfunctory embrace. I tried to make conversation, to bridge the chasm of 2 decades. I asked about their lives, their work, their children, trying to sound genuinely interested. Clara gave clipped, vague answers, her eyes constantly scanning the crowd, as if looking for an escape. Thomas was more interested in checking his phone, his thumb scrolling idly, his attention clearly elsewhere. It was like talking to strangers. "I brought you a gift, Clara," I said, my voice softer now, holding out the small velvet box, its dark surface a stark contrast to the glittering opulence around us. She took it, her expression unreadable, her fingers brushing mine for a fleeting second, a touch that felt cold and impersonal. "Oh, you shouldn't have," she murmured, a stock phrase, devoid of genuine appreciation. She didn't open it. She just placed it on a nearby table, forgotten amidst other, larger, more extravagant presents. My heart sank. The locket, with its precious memory, was just another discarded trinket. As the evening wore on, I felt increasingly invisible. I stood awkwardly by the edge of the garden, nursing a glass of sparkling water, watching my children move through their perfect world, laughing, mingling, utterly oblivious to my presence. I saw Clara's children, my grandchildren, a boy and a girl, running on the lawn, their laughter bright and carefree. They were beautiful, vibrant, full of life. I longed to approach them, to introduce myself, but a glance at Clara's rigid posture, her watchful eyes, told me it was forbidden. Then, David, Clara's husband, approached me, a charming, practiced smile on his face, his eyes glinting with a calculated warmth. "Margaret, so glad you could make it," he said, his voice smooth and unctuous. "Clara and Thomas have been meaning to talk to you about something important." My stomach tightened. "Oh?" I managed, my voice barely a whisper. "Yes," he continued, placing a hand gently on my arm, a gesture that felt more like a subtle push than a comforting touch. He led me to a quieter corner of the garden, away from the main festivities, where Clara and Thomas were already waiting, their faces carefully neutral. "It's about the old lake house." My lake house. The small, rustic cabin my late husband and I had bought with our first savings, a place of dreams and hard work. The one where Clara and Thomas had spent every summer, fishing in the cool, clear water, swimming until their fingers were pruny, building sandcastles on the tiny strip of beach. It was modest, but it held a lifetime of memories. After my husband died, I couldn't afford the upkeep, so I rented it out. It was my only significant asset, my security. "We have an excellent opportunity," Clara began, her voice suddenly businesslike, all traces of party pleasantries gone. Her eyes were sharp, focused. "The property next to the lake house is for sale. A developer wants to buy both lots to build a luxury resort. It's a prime location, Mother. A real gold mine. And they've made us an offer," Thomas added, pulling out a sleek tablet, its screen glowing in the dim light. He tapped at it with a practiced finger. "A very generous offer, Mother. But they need both properties to make the deal work. They want to buy your lake house too." "My lake house?" I felt a cold dread spread through me. "But I don't want to sell it." Clara sighed, a hint of impatience in her tone. "Mother, be practical. That house is old. It needs constant repairs. A money pit, really. The rental income is barely covering the taxes. This is a chance for you to get a significant sum of money, more than you could ever imagine. Enough to live like a queen." "It's not just money," I said, my voice barely a whisper. It's memories. It's where we spent our summers. It's where your father taught you to fish, Thomas, where Clara learned to swim." I looked from one to the other, searching for a flicker of recognition. Thomas scoffed. "Mother, those memories are old. This is about the future. Imagine, you could live comfortably, travel, do whatever you want, and it would help us too. We're investing in the developer's new project. It's a guaranteed return." His eyes held a cold, calculating gleam. "So you want me to sell my only asset, my last connection to your father, so you can make more money?" The words came out sharper than I intended. David stepped in, his voice soothing. "Margaret, it's not like that. Think of it as a family investment. You'd be helping us, and helping yourself. We're talking about a substantial amount, enough to secure your future." He smiled, a perfect, empty smile. I looked at them all. I saw the barely concealed greed in David's eyes, the impatience on Clara's face, the cold calculation in Thomas's expression, and something inside me snapped. Enough. Enough begging, enough pleading, enough sending gifts into the void, enough unanswered calls, enough pretending that things would change someday, enough clinging to the hope that my children would remember who had raised them, enough being invisible, enough being convenient only when they needed something. The years of quiet desperation, of silent longing, coalesced into a fierce, unyielding resolve. My breathing calmed. My heart stopped beating so fast, settling into a steady, resolute rhythm. A cold, perfect clarity settled in my mind. I knew exactly what I had to do. I was not going to scream. I was not going to make a scene. I was not going to give them that power. I was going to disappear. But first, I had to get off this stage with what little dignity I had left. I took a deep breath, the jasmine scent now cloying, and looked Clara directly in the eyes, holding her gaze with a newfound strength. "I need to think about it," I said, my voice surprisingly firm and clear. "It's a lot of money and a major decision." I saw her face tense up, a flicker of irritation crossing her features. "Mother, there's not much to think about," she replied with a forced smile. her voice edged with impatience. "It's a unique opportunity. The property is going to be sold soon, and we need to close the deal this week." This week? The pressure was not accidental, I realized. Thomas intervened, taking a sleek silver pen from his inner jacket pocket. "Look, Mother, if you sign the documents now, I can process everything tomorrow morning. It's a simple process. I just need access to your account to make the transfer." He held out the tablet, its screen displaying a complex legal document. Access to my account. They wanted access to my bank account, the only security I had left. "No," I said simply, the word leaving my mouth before I could overthink it. It was a small word, but it felt like a thunderclap. The silence that followed was heavy, uncomfortable. David let out a nervous laugh. "What do you mean, no, Margaret? Don't you understand that this is for your own good too? We're trying to help you." "For my own good," I repeated, feeling the cold rage become solid inside me. "For my own good would be if you had called me even once in 20 years. For my own good would be meeting my grandchildren. For my own good would be having been invited into your lives, and not just to this party when you need my money." My voice rose slightly, but it was controlled. It was the voice of a woman who had finally found her voice. Clara and Thomas's faces hardened, their expressions closing off. Some guests, drawn by the sudden tension, started murmuring among themselves. "Mother, don't do this here," Clara said through gritted teeth, her voice low and furious. "Don't make a scene." A scene? I was not the one who had organized this public ambush. "Keep your voices down, please," David said, looking around at the guests with discomfort. "We can talk about this in private." "There is nothing to talk about," I replied, my voice steady, unwavering. "I am not going to sign anything. I am not going to give my money, and now I am going to leave." I turned on my heel, the sapphire dress swirling around my legs. I stepped away from them, without waiting for an answer. My legs were shaking, a faint tremor beneath the surface, but they kept moving. I heard Clara calling my name, a sharp, angry sound, but I didn't turn around. I heard footsteps following me, quick and urgent, but I didn't stop. I reached my table, grabbed my purse with the gift I would never deliver, the small velvet box a heavy weight within, and walked toward the garden exit, toward the house, toward freedom. Thomas caught up to me just before I reached the house's threshold, his hand clamping firmly around my arm, his grip surprisingly strong. "You cannot leave like this, Mother," he said with a low, threatening voice. "Not after everything." "Let go of me," I replied, trying to free my arm, twisting my wrist against his hold. "You need to understand something," he continued without letting go. "That lake house is a smart investment. If you don't participate, don't expect to ever have access to it. Don't expect to come visit us there. Don't expect to be part of our family vacations." The implicit threat hung heavy in the air. "I don't expect anything from you," I said, looking directly at him, my gaze unwavering, my voice clear and strong. "I haven't expected anything for 20 years, and you know what? I finally understood it. You didn't forget me. You chose to forget me, and I chose to stay begging like a fool. But that is over." Something in my tone, in the sudden, fierce conviction in my eyes, must have surprised him because he finally let go of my arm. "Mother," he started to say, a flicker of confusion, or perhaps even regret crossing his face, but I interrupted him. "Don't call me Mother. Mothers receive calls from their children. Mothers know their grandchildren. Mothers are part of their families' lives. I am not your mother. I am just someone with money that suddenly interests you." I turned around and kept walking, my head held high. This time, no one stopped me. The silence behind me was absolute. I left that house, that perfect garden, that farce of a family celebration, the strains of the string quartet fading behind me. I walked out to the street, the cool night air a welcome balm on my flushed cheeks, and called a taxi from my phone, my fingers still trembling slightly. I waited under the soft glow of the entrance lights, the sounds of the party continuing inside as if nothing had happened. When the taxi arrived, its yellow lights a comforting sight, I got in and gave my address to the driver, my voice steady now. I looked out the window as we drove away from that lit-up mansion, its grandeur receding into the darkness. And in that moment, with a clarity I had never had before, a profound sense of liberation, I knew exactly what I was going to do. I was not going to keep begging. I was not going to keep waiting. I was not going to keep being the invisible mother who existed only when they needed her. I was going to disappear for real, completely. And when I did, it would be in such a way that they could never, ever find me or access what was mine. The taxi moved through the dark streets, and I felt like every mile that took me away from that house was a mile toward my freedom, toward my new life, toward the woman I should have been 20 years ago. The weight on my shoulders, the invisible burden of expectation and disappointment, began to lift, replaced by a lightness I hadn't felt in decades. I arrived at my apartment past midnight, the familiar quiet of my small home, a stark contrast to the opulent chaos I had just left. I took off the sapphire dress, its elegant fabric now feeling heavy and symbolic, and folded it carefully, knowing I would never wear it again. It was a costume I had shed. I put on my old comfortable robe, its worn cotton soft against my skin, and sat at the kitchen table with a cup of tea I had no intention of drinking. I pulled out my laptop, its screen a pale rectangle in the dim light, my fingers hovering over the keyboard. The first step: change my name, not just legally, but completely. A new identity, a new life, a fresh start. I would sell the lake house, yes, but not to them, and not for their benefit. I would sell it and use the money to disappear, to truly disappear, to become a ghost on my own terms. The next few months were a blur of paperwork, phone calls, and quiet goodbyes. Each task, each signature, each conversation was a step further away from the past, a step closer to my new self. I sold the lake house to a young couple, their eyes bright with dreams, who promised to cherish its history, to fill it with new memories. The money was substantial, more than enough to buy a small, charming condo by the sea, miles away from my old life, miles away from them. I legally changed my name to Eleanor Vance. Eleanor. It felt strong, independent, a name that resonated with the woman I was becoming. I closed my old bank accounts, opened new ones, and ensured my digital footprint was erased as much as possible. I told no one where I was going, not even my closest friends. This was a clean break, a complete severance. It was terrifying, exhilarating, and utterly necessary. My new condo overlooked the ocean, the vast expanse of blue stretching out to the horizon, the sound of waves a constant, soothing lullaby that filled the quiet spaces of my new home. I spent my days walking on the beach, the sand soft beneath my bare feet, collecting seashells, feeling the sun on my skin, the gentle sea breeze ruffling my hair. I joined a local book club, started taking painting classes, discovering a hidden talent for watercolors, and found a small community of women my age who were also seeking new beginnings. They were kind, vibrant, and full of life, their laughter echoing in the small coffee shops we frequented. They didn't know my past, and I didn't offer it. I was simply Eleanor, a woman who had arrived, unburdened, ready to live. One afternoon, about a year after I'd moved, a letter arrived. It was forwarded from my old address, a stark reminder of the life I'd left behind. The handwriting was Clara's, elegant and familiar. My hands trembled as I opened it, the paper rustling softly, my heart giving a sudden, unwelcome lurch. "Mother," it began, the word feeling foreign, almost accusatory. "I know you're angry. I know we messed up. Thomas and David were wrong to pressure you like that. I was wrong to let them. After you left the party, things changed. David was furious. Thomas was angry. But I started thinking. About everything. About the silence. About the years. And I found the locket you gave me. The one with my baby picture. I cried, Mother. I truly did. I remembered all the summers at the lake house, all the stories you told, all the love you gave. I remembered you, before everything got so complicated. I miss you. We miss you. Please, Mother, tell me where you are. Let's talk. Let's try to fix this. I know it's a lot to ask, but I need you. Your grandchildren ask about you. They saw your picture. They want to know their grandmother. Please, Clara." Enclosed with the letter was a small, tarnished silver necklace, its delicate chain dull with age. It was the one I had given Clara when she was 5, a tiny heart pendant. She had bought it with her own savings, $5 she had scraped together over months. She had given it to me on Mother's Day with a handmade card that said, "To the best mom in the world." I had kept that necklace for years like a treasure. She must have found it when they cleared out my old house after selling it. I held the necklace in my hands, its cool metal a stark contrast to the warmth of my skin, and cried. They weren't tears of joy or reconciliation. They were tears of grief for what could have been and never was, for the relationship we should have had and was lost, for the years we would never get back, for the innocent child who had given me this necklace, and the woman she had become. I put the letter and the necklace in a small wooden box at the back of my closet, tucked away behind old scarves and forgotten mementos. I did not reply. I did not call. I did not look for Clara. Because even though I appreciated her apology, even though I recognized her apparent sincerity, a part of me, the part that had hardened over 2 decades of neglect, also knew that some things are broken in ways that cannot be repaired. And I was at peace with that. I had spent 20 years trying to force a relationship my children didn't want. I wasn't going to spend the rest of my life doing the same. My life now was mine. My time was mine. My peace was mine. And I wasn't willing to risk any of that. Not even for the possibility of recovering a daughter I had lost a long time ago. A daughter who had chosen to lose me first. 6 months after receiving that letter, on a particularly beautiful morning, the sun a warm caress on my skin, I was drinking coffee on my balcony, watching the fishing boats bob gently on the waves, when my friend Betty came up with a small, homemade cake, its frosting a cheerful blue. "It's your birthday," she announced with a wide smile. 70 years deserves to be celebrated, Eleanor. I had completely forgotten my birthday, but Betty had remembered. We cut the cake and ate it watching the sunrise, the sky painted in hues of pink and orange. She told me stories of her 72 years, of her regrets and her joys, her voice raspy with age but full of life. And I shared my own reflections. I reached this age finally feeling free, I told her, my gaze fixed on the horizon, free of expectations that were never met, free of a family that viewed me as a burden, free of begging for love that wasn't reciprocal. And you know what, Betty? It feels glorious. She raised her coffee mug in a toast. To freedom, she said, her voice firm. To dignity. To women who finally said enough. We toasted, the clink of our mugs a small celebratory sound, and the sun finished rising over the ocean, bathing everything in golden light. In that moment, I understood something fundamental. I hadn't lost my children had lost me, and it was their loss, not mine. Because I had spent 70 years learning to love unconditionally, to give without expecting anything in return, to be strong even when everything crumbled. I had raised 2 children alone, I had worked to exhaustion, I had sacrificed everything for them, and when I finally decided to stop sacrificing myself, when I finally chose my own peace over their comfort, I became the villain of their story. But I didn't mind being the villain if it meant finally being free. Today, 3 years after that birthday party that changed everything, I continue living in my condo by the sea. I am 72 years old. My hair is completely white, a silver crown, and I no longer bother dyeing it. I have deep wrinkles that tell the story of a full life with its pains and its victories, each line a testament to resilience. I walk on the beach every morning without fail, the rhythm of the waves a steady companion. I have made friends here, women my age who understand what it is to reinvent oneself in the last stage of life. We go to yoga classes together, our bodies a little stiffer but our spirits unbent. We organize dinners, sharing recipes and stories. We celebrate our birthdays, our small victories, our shared journey. We are the family we chose, not the one we were given. Sometimes I think of Clara and Thomas. I wonder how they are, if they are carrying on with their perfect lives, if they bought their beach house with someone else's money, if they ever truly understood what they lost. But those thoughts are less and less frequent and less painful. They are like distant echoes, fading into the background. I do not hate them. Maybe I should, but I don't. I simply release them. I let them go like you let go of anything that hurts you, anything that no longer serves you. And in that letting go, I found something I never expected to find. I found myself. Eleanor Vance, a 72-year-old woman who lives alone, but is not alone, who has little money but enough, who has no family but has community, who lost her children but gained her freedom. My story does not have a happy ending in the traditional sense. There is no reconciliation. There is no final hug. There is no mutual forgiveness and fresh start. But it has something better. It has peace. It has dignity. It has a woman who finally understood that her worth does not depend on others recognizing it. And that, I discovered, is more than enough. I finish my coffee while the sun rises completely on the horizon, painting the sky in vibrant hues. Another day, another opportunity to live on my own terms. I smile and go inside to get ready for my morning walk, the scent of the ocean filling my lungs. Life goes on. My life goes on, and for the first time in decades, that fills me with joy instead of sadness. This story is a work of fiction. Any resemblance to real people, events, or places is purely coincidental.